Okay, so we'll start then. So hi, I'm John Jones. I head up a portfolio of FourNet. Not sure who that clean-shaven young guy is there. I've worked at FourNet for about 7 years now, heavily involved initially at building our cloud proposition and infrastructure. Headed up the solution design team for a bit, and now I sort of look after all of our products and services throughout FourNet. Kev?
Thanks, John. I'm Kevin Prane. I'm the Chief Security Architect for FourNet.
Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover a little bit about how we've got to where we are. Now, we've done this in other sessions today, we sort of get that, but this is more through a lens of what FourNet have seen and what we've built over the last few years. And then jumping straight into our proposition around security and networking and what the future looks like. Okay.
Yeah, so how have we got here? I mean, I'm probably old enough, only just. I was a little butterbean in 1970. But we probably all remember the ARPANET actually being created then. And what was traditionally happening there was computing was traditionally connected locally. So we didn't have the IBM PC. That didn't come until sort of 1980. Then we had the advent of gaming in 81 with the Commodore, which I still have in my loft somewhere. Lovely. And then we moved into 1980s, really the advent of the IBM PC. And when the IBM PC, the world changed, and the world changed forever, because suddenly we were into this distributed computing model. Suddenly we had a very, very changed attack surface. And then as we move on, we started to see the introduction of things like XDR, MDR, and basically what we're trying to illustrate here is that the world's gone from that to this huge attack surface, and at the same time, the number of devices connected to the internet has gone exponentially. I think they were predicting that people would have between 5 and 6 devices each connected to the internet. And now we know with all these IoT things, Alexas, connected fridges, your Teslas and all the other things that need to connect to the internet now, it's just getting absolutely ridiculous.
And we saw a similar thing at FourNet. So I knew Richard Pennington well before I joined FourNet, and I was designing the networks for him to do on-premise Avaya solutions back at the time. But then we joined FourNet and we created what we call Agile Cloud, which you can see on the left there. And that was the first tentative steps of customers moving their unified comms and contact center out to a trusted partner like FourNet. So at the same time, they were also moving their other applications like CRM to their own data centers or maybe a partner data center. And remote users as well. So that was quite a complicated business back in private cloud days. We had to set up VPNs and configure our SBCs and all this complicated stuff. Well, I think the point here is, to your point, Kev, as criminals were getting more organised around 2015, 2016, and the threats were getting more sophisticated, the attack surface is growing. And if we jump forward to COVID times, what happened here? Well, we all know, we all worked from home very quickly. And again, from a FourNet perspective, there were sort of 2 levels of that. There was the guys who'd already moved to Agile Cloud. That was easy for them. They just buy more licenses, a bit more infrastructure. But for the public sector clients who hadn't moved to cloud at all, that was more difficult. So we had to get out in COVID times. Luckily, our engineers were cleared to work on national critical infrastructure, so we were fine. But it was difficult from that perspective. And at the same time, that's the catalyst, isn't it, to move into public cloud. So our UC solutions became Teams, Contact Center became CX1 and Content Guru all out in the public cloud. And indeed, AWS and Azure really took off. So back to your favourite word, attack surface, Kevin. At this point now, it's extremely large. And if you think about the data as well, I've gone from knowing where my data is to it being all over these public clouds all over the place. And we moved so quickly back then just to keep the lights on, just to keep our businesses running, that securing this and worrying about our data, Kevin, was a secondary consideration.
It certainly was. And, as a security professional, part of you wants the organisation to survive, right? You've got to do the transformation at the velocity you need for the business to survive. But the risks that were created as a result of that massive transformation, 5 to 7 years of digital transformation in 3 or 4 weeks, was good. And clearly some organisations were better prepared than others for that. But then we start to see a little bit of post-COVID cyber attacking going on. So we've got your test results. You might have been next to somebody who's got the lurgy, pressed the button to find out who it was. and we were seeing more and more of those attacks starting to happen. Malware actually relating to coronavirus was starting to proliferate, and then we were seeing, that permanent shift to sort of home working. At the same time, we're seeing things like CFO fraud, which was, very, very, very insightful. And we saw that gap between your ability to defend effectively and what you were needing to defend grow massively. And that's really, sums it up in a nutshell, really.
So obviously at FourNet, we've created these secure infrastructure services to go along this, but some of the other things that we considered sort of post-COVID around the Internet of Things, so that explosion of devices, both, what we wear and smart buildings, smart appliances, but also we're going to talk about one of our customers, Northern Gas, who are utilities, bringing them into a secure infrastructure. So they've got, partner connections, lots of sensors across the network, and things like that. And because of that explosion in internet space that's needed, IPv6 is very, very important. So remember my days as an engineer, IPv4 was everything, but it ran out of address space very quickly. So we've now got a near infinite amount of addresses to look after this Internet of Things that we have. 5G, we need to take this into account with secure infrastructure. Me personally, my 5G experience, not the greatest, tend to get better experience on my phone if it's 4G. But when it does take off and we get that low latency, high bandwidth, it's a really good opportunity to get our customers in and working quickly. And that will go hand in hand with SD-WAN. So when we talk about our services in a second, SD-WAN is absolutely crucial. It's going to become ubiquitous. But we do it in a certain way that's arguably more secure, but also agnostic to the network that's underneath it. And finally, artificial intelligence. We've had a lot of talk about that today, Kevin, and lots of sort of keynote talks on it. And one example in particular is AI tools. So AI operations, so, taking in all that information. So it's AI-driven machine learning software and technology. It's taking in all this information, log files, ticketing systems, network devices, that sort of thing. Okay? It's collating that information, bringing it together and analysing it. And where there are issues, it's looking for root cause analysis. And it's also, giving us recommendations on how we fix it, or even fixing it itself through automatic playbooks and, turning services off and on. But what's interesting is the uptake. So we work quite heavily with TechTarget at FourNet. And what we found was that they did a survey. So 34% of people are using these tools, but just as a gathering tool. I want to see the data, but our guys are going to look and we're going to do our own recommendations and our own remediation.
And there's an element of retaining control there, isn't there?
Of course, yeah. 48% of people of these network managers saying we'd like to see the recommendations that AIOps gives us, but when it comes to affecting that change, we'll still do it ourselves. And then the 18% are doing the full shebang, automating end-to-end from that point of view. Okay, so a little bit of context there. We're going to jump into what do we need to do. But first, fingers crossed, have we got anything on Slido?
I think we have, John. I think we have. Now, due to the challenges of tech today, we've got some votes in from the panel.
Have we discussed anything that people have put in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to meet Alex Hisley, who was that one? Somebody thought they'd just add that, surely that was just a paid thing.
The grandfather of SOC
services.
Okay,
so that's the grandfather of the SOC service, one of my colleagues in the SOC team. Visibility is figuring really, really heavily here. So thank you to the people that were listening this morning. Visibility is absolutely key. Early visibility and the ability to defend is absolutely key. Likelihood of an attack. We know these things are happening, don't we? We know you're more likely to be attacked. And indeed, most organisations are being attacked right now and you just don't know it. And that's a scary thing. Misconfiguration, again, great learning points there. So people were listening. And control. And for the people that have visited the SOC stand, the Flipper Zero attacks, because that really did concern people when we took their credit cards out and we were actually scanning their credit card details. So thank you, SOC team, for terrorising everybody. So, and somebody's put a SQL command in with a star union select null. So clearly we've got some hardcore SQL injection people in the room.
Oh, I thought you meant a sequel of me and you doing this.
Oh,
again.
no. I think when people have watched
John
this one
Kev,
time,
the secretary.
there won't be a sequel, John, trust me.
Need a cold
So,
shower. Okay, cool. So your next slide or task, should you choose to accept it, is to answer this question. So out of these examples here, what are your biggest concerns around all things cloud networking and security? And I think, Kevin, you've set that up as a multiple choice, and you can choose multiple options.
Yeah.
So based on what we've learned today, what we're thinking now, I would say, me personally, I'll be clicking social engineering because Jenny scared the hell out of me.
Have you still got
and
your
also
wallet,
cloud vulnerabilities, be it cloud being very close to what I do. Pardon?
Have you still got your wallet is the important thing. I did double check it, and I also put my phone away. You've got it all. Thanks, guys. Okay, luckily I cloned
so
the car.
hopefully you've got that, and thanks very much for getting involved. So there's a few badges here. So when we go into our proposition, we build it around best practice and frameworks, and some of these badges should be familiar to you. For me, just going from the left there, PCI compliant, so our cloud platforms are fully PCI compliant, our government antenna one, working with PCI PAL, but also we use a lot of PCI descoping applications. So we work with our partners to, in the carrier space, when that payment information is going in from, say, Gamma SIP, we capture it up there and make sure that none of that payment information hits our clouds, and more importantly, the customer infrastructure there. ISO 27001 and Cyber Essentials Plus, these are badges we've had for many years, and we've built our clouds to those best practices. And what that means is we're audited periodically as well, so we don't let that slip. Kev, do you want to take some others?
Yeah, and a few others. Obviously, we've took the NIST approach that people have talked about, and heard about this morning. So our ability to assess, our capability to take those risks, have the relevant controls, operate, recover, and detect cyber attacks. So clearly, we've built that into the portfolio because we need to. The national cybersecurity framework as well, that is really, really important and take a lot of learning. And we also build our operational runbooks and our capabilities via the SANS Institute. So people tend to have their favourite go-tos, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. But the important thing, John, is that when you bring it all together, can that build? Wow, it's as if we pre-thought it. The cyber security strategy from the government has actually brought the best of, well, it's not both worlds, it's all worlds.
Yes.
So that ruins my Hannah Montana joke. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about, the cyber.
Yeah, we can do. So it's a bit of a QR fest today, guys. So what you can do is you can zap the QR code, and this will download the government security brochure so you can read about this. So it sort of backs up what me and Kevin are about to talk about. Unfortunately, the first page is our old Prime Minister, but you can scroll past that bit. And then it starts talking about 5 pillars, which we've put on the screen here, which align very much to our services and how they're arranged. Okay. So Kevin, I think this is your bag really. So what we're going to do is jump in and talk about what we do, basically assess and plan.
Absolutely. So we've got to manage the risks. We need to know what the risks are, what the vectors are, how do we control them, how can we detect them, etc., etc. From an assessment point of view, we're very, very keen on making sure we baseline an organisation. So we don't jump to conclusions about what you need. We sit there and we understand your problems, your gaps. We don't just displace technology for technology's sake. And what we do is we put the best solutions in place to support you. So those assessment services can be done in 6 to 9 days, typically. So it's quite quick. But what it does enable you to do is get a full risk assessment, benchmark yourself against where you are in the industry, against your peers and where you want to be. Technical review, how well are the tools that you've invested in actually doing the job? And often we find, again, for those of you who heard me this morning, apologies, but you don't do configuration 1 and leave it. You've got to continually assure those configurations. And then that assessment report, being able to give you an idea of where your strengths and weaknesses are. And it takes the form of a red, amber, green report. Why? Because when, as IT professionals, we're trying to articulate to boards need to understand risk. Boards do understand risk. They don't necessarily understand cybersecurity risk. So what we're doing here is we're trying to visualize where those high-level issues are, and then we give it back to the board to say, ultimately, and under NIST 3, I think the boards are going to be culpable for the security decisions that they actually make. So it's no longer, nah, we're not doing it. It's, yada, we are, and we have to do it to be compliant. So really, really important.
Cool. So on to our protect part. So this is very much our secure infrastructure play, Kevin. And what it is with this one is we have the ability to design networks and infrastructure that are inherently secure by design. So if you look at the graphic on screen, from endpoint protection to small branch office, next generation firewalls, SD-WAN, a whole host of different WAN technologies underneath. More importantly, software defined. And when we talk about Northern Gas a bit later, you'll see why that's important. And also we've got tons of large enterprises in education and public sector that we do. But more importantly, these are across multiple vendors. And we're the highest accreditation with our main vendors, Cisco, FourNet, Extreme, and also Gamma for many years as well. The guys are security cleared, so the SC NPPV3, so we can work on blue light and any infrastructure really. And the partners here implicitly trust us. Okay, so they wheel us into the biggest accounts. We help find problems. We build networks from scratch. And I really like this because from my old sort of network design perspective, we can go in consultatively and we can choose we can maybe do a hybrid network of 2 vendors or more. But more importantly, if a customer's, say, for example, moving from Cisco to FourNet, we can understand that Cisco estate and then move them to FourNet risk-free because we know the whole migration piece. So it's really important that. So we're in a great position, got loads of great technical guys and indeed project managers, etc., know this stuff inside out. The next thing we can add to this is Agile Cloud. How many people in here are aware of Agile Cloud? Quite a few. Okay, good, excellent. Which has pretty much been my baby for the last 7 years, so at least someone's heard of it.
So somebody likes it, John.
And what do we have in here? So we have 24/7 NOC and SOC services. So Network Operations Center, this is where we build our networks from. Okay, so we have management and analytics in there. The guys know what they're doing. We pre-stage all of the routers and switches and send them out, zero-touch provision, and then we start ingesting the analytics and letting our customers access that. And we can do a full managed service or a co-managed thing where you get access to it. 24/7 SOC, which we're going to discuss in our Defend proposition in a second. Also in Agile Cloud, quite good you walked in now, we're going to be launching our UC as a service, FourNet Report, which is our own hosted UC, along with compliance, recording and analytics across that piece. And we also do a lot of hosting services now, compute, backup as a services, etc. The other thing is we have lots and lots of interconnects that we've built up over many years to our contact center platforms, PCI compliance, SIP, and also into the hyperscalers, into AWS and Azure. Now, next door, they're talking about the Alzheimer's contact center deployment, very much from a customer experience point of view, and it's a real feather in our cap because it's the first dementia-friendly contact center in the UK, and they're very proud of it, we're very proud of it, it's a great success story. But it's very much designed and built upon this infrastructure. So what we did for them, we built them a virtual environment over a couple of data centers. They wanted it resilient. Then we connected to CX1. We're the only company in the UK that does that over directly into their data centers. We did the same for Teams. We integrated it at an API level, and then we brought the SIP in, and we've got one solution that's inherently secure by design as well. So that fundamental network that they're built on is the reason for the success of that project, or one of the reasons for the success of that project. Gave them a great foundation to build that dementia-friendly contact center up. So Kev, let's take it to the next level. So we've talked a bit about cloud and infrastructure and switches and SD-WAN, but I want to know what sort of SASE means to you. So if I introduce a bit of complexity, don't want to make it too easy for you. So we start looking at customers got many Internet of Things that are coming in, but also people who want to work remotely on any device. How do we secure that, and how does Agile Cloud build a SASE infrastructure, and how do we do the zero trust elements, Kev?
Yeah, well, I mean, typically during that transformation, as we talked about, everybody hairpinning into the head site, right? So most of the time to get security, it must come through the head site. And sometimes that's not necessarily optimum traffic flow for that particular operation. From a risk point of view, we want it in the head site. As security professionals, we always want the best everywhere, right? But there's a trade-off. So in terms of other things like Internet of Things, we've got to remember that we can't necessarily get clients onto a drone or a door access controller or a connected fridge or the Tesla, okay? But when they are connected, they've got to connect to the utility at the edge securely. So essentially what we're trying to do here with SASE is push the security to the edge, as close to the edge as possible, as close to the user as possible. Of course, you still need to put certain traffic inside the network, and that's where your SD-WAN works best. Zero Trust Network Access is about that continual validation of trust and enabling people to work remotely regardless of what the device is, with that intelligence access decision and all the features that a SASE, secure access services product will enable you to do. So cloud firewalling, for instance, DLP, IPS and IDS in the cloud. So it's really important, John, that we can push those technologies to the edge.
Fantastic, thank you. And then the last part of the Protect proposition that we have is around network as a service. And this is new, and this is something that we're going to build, hopefully with help from our customers, from you guys. And the reason for it is, if you look at a normal managed service, it's very much built around SLAs of 4-hour fix for this appliance and this circuit goes down and that sort of thing, a break fix maintenance mentality. But if you think about some of the tools we have now, we have all the AI ops stuff we discussed before, intelligent network management, and SD-WAN that, understands applications and how to optimize them. So we can get to a point now where instead of giving you an SLA around the bits that make it up, we can do it around business outcomes. So for example, your critical applications, wherever they might be accessed from, bearing in mind that we've secured them, making sure that they're delivered and they perform correctly. Ultimately getting to this utility model. If I'm at home and I pour a glass of water, I don't care about, has that coming through 2 pipes, are they gold, are they silver, who the provider is it this reservoir, that reservoir. All I care about is it's there when I want it, it's clean and safe, and I'm paying for what I use as well. And we want to get to that point as well with networking as well. If I fire up my laptop, don't really care where the access points are. I just care that my applications perform, I'm safe when I'm using them, and I'm also paying for the bandwidth that I use. So at FourNet now, we're in a really good position where we've got all this sort of tool set, but we need to work with you guys to define what this service is going to be. Okay? So this is what excites me. So the call to arms after this session will very much be, let's book in these workshops and let's do it. And just generally, 7 years of FourNet, that's how Agile Cloud has got more mature for me. Because our customers have been pushing us. We need another SIP provider. We need more data centers. We need more applications. We need to do it this way. So that's how our capability has grown over the years. So we can't do this without you, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm very protected. I've got SASE, Zero Trust. I'm good to go. I've now learned today that I'm going to be hacked regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you're playing with risk. The only way to truly make something secure is turn it off, put it back in the box and send it to the vendor. Okay. Now, we know that's not terribly realistic, right? So what we're trying to do is make sure that we understand when we're defending organisations that we're doing things in the right way. And based on research, only 64% of organisations actually are probably not confident up to maybe somewhat confident in what they're doing from a cybersecurity point of view. So we see that as a big opportunity for us to be able to help you and augment your security offerings and help get you into a position of a more secure infrastructure, adopting the technologies like Agile Cloud, enabling you to inject security into the application as you consume it. So it's a slightly different way of starting to think about it.
We're trying to mitigate as much as possible, but we can't get 100%.
Absolutely. So, do you go directly through Teams yourself, or do you peer with us where we've got all the security controls? So it's that sort of thing. So our FourNet Defence Service is predominantly managed detection and response, defeat and restore. Okay. So we've got security incident and event management, and we've got security operations in there. That enables us to essentially get that holistic view across the entire attack surface that we talked about this morning. From end to end, from your clouds, your platforms, your infrastructure, your SaaS providers everywhere, and your on-prem and your remote workers. It's bringing everything into one centralised area and enabling us to act to that modular. So you don't have to have just Cisco, just FourNet, just Extreme. You can have your Junipers and your HPs and your Arubas and every other vendor that you want on the planet. Because essentially we're defending you. If we've done the assessment with you, we're happy that the tools are doing the job, then we'll defend those with you as well. We're monitoring 24/7 real time, so that enables us to detect things like impossible time travel, when people are logging on from 5 different locations. Then we find out we're just using Netflix, and they're trying to get next year's episode of 24 from the US, and they're not up to anything military. But we're seeing things really quickly. And we also are bridging that security gap. So our expert defenders that are sat in the back of the room here will be able to take interventions that prevent a full-scale attack. You know, the earlier we can see, the earlier we can defend. Coupled with our expertise, I think we're unrivaled.
Excellent. And we do like to recognise the expertise of these guys are second to none, but do we have to, Kev, to you?
Well, absolutely. If you think you've got the capability, then, you know, fine, we'll provide the tooling, we'll provide the best practice and crack on. And lots of organisations might say, you know what, we'll want to shift you as a temporary element, we'll see how it goes, and if it goes well, then we'll move more to you. Or indeed, we want to develop our own capabilities, so some of the work that we're doing in certain geographies in the UK, they're wanting to do that. Be careful about what I'm saying here. We can also move into the co-managed areas, so you know we will manage with you and we will defend with you, and then when you get to bed, we'll carry on looking at where we go. So we become a natural extension of you. But what we're instilling, and this is by no means a comprehensive list, by the way, is those secure behaviours. One, we understand your vulnerabilities. Two, we're continually checking the security effectiveness of what's going on. Number three, we're continually getting information and telemetry from everywhere, and as your business changes, we'll add more and more telemetry to enable us to defend you. We'll build the cyber incident plans with you, we'll test them with you, and we'll actually assure you again every 6 months. So we'll do that full end-to-end review that we did at the outset, check where we are in the blueprint. Has the world changed? Well, guess what? Security is probably one of the fastest moving industries in the world. So we might need to change direction, we'll change direction together.
Excellent. So, okay, so we've got agile cloud protection, being defended, that's great. But taking the other part of it, to Jenny's point, the human aspect. So what can we do around, you know, ongoing monitoring, but also training the users of that network?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Jenny articulated this beautifully, and I'm not going to pretend to be dead because I'm not a scouser. So I can't do it. Okay. But from my perspective, you know, when we've got to realise, you know, that the brain is split into 4 main parts. You know, the important bit that we're going to talk about is the ability to not be dead, the ability to survive or fight or flight, and then we've got various other centres in our brain talking around how we process things. So a good example, a kid runs out in front of the car. If your processing part of your brain is going to be responsible for that decision, it's not going to end well. Okay, so, but those things cause biases in our brain. So anybody who suffers from anxiety probably realise this, that it's okay, it's not what you think. The last thing you can say to somebody with anxiety is it's okay, it's not real, because it feels real. So we change the way we behave, don't we? Availability bias, what's more dangerous, John, a shark or a bar attacker?
Depends.
Well, that's the right answer, John, that's the right answer, because you're more likely to actually die from coronary heart disease, marine or chocolate than be by a shark, especially when you live in Manchester. So from an authority bias point of view, I think Jenny pointed this out really well. When you're being attacked, attackers are actually using you as that vulnerability. I mean, using those, that authority bias. Come and see HR for your performance review. Click here for the tax return. Click here for your speeding fine on the M6. Yeah, I get lots of those, but I just ignore them. I hope they're just cyber attacks. So from a people, we've got to try and get people away from being the key vulnerability and try and change them to be that human firewall. So what we're doing, we're using human psychology as the method to create those interventions. So how many people have done cybersecurity training? How many people have done with cybersecurity training? Have done it. I did it on induction. Okay. Then what we do is we start putting in various behaviours, saying, how about the fact that you're kinesthetic, you learn in a different way, you might be auditory, you learn in a different way. So no one-size platform fits all. Your learning experience needs to change. More importantly, one vulnerability, one person is more vulnerable than the other. As soon as a new Apple product is launched, the socks then spearfishing and back. I go, yes, fantastic. Ooh, we're compromised. So what we've got to do is we've got to be able to show that organisations are being compliant. And one of the things about GDPR is you need to actually be able to demonstrate that you are training people properly. So that's one of the key things about our training proposition. In terms of monitoring, we talked about credentials. So number one, traded commodity on the dark web, great, followed by squid missile launches and various other bits and bobs. But credentials, right? Why? Because they've been massively modified. People are using the same passwords everywhere. Think about your digital life. If we look at those elements there, how many people are using the same password everywhere? Or how many partners are using the same password everywhere? Yeah? Or parents are using the same password everywhere. Because if we're not going to be attacked as individuals, we'll certainly be attacked by our weakest link, which will be our family and our friends. So we need to be aware that we need to be cognizant that these are out there, and when they're out there, we can do something about it. So our monitoring service enables us to do that. We can identify those compromised credentials, we can create the interventions, we can make the problem go away.
Yeah, you demoed that to me, Kevin, and it was very, very scary.
It is scary. So if anybody is wanting a complimentary dark web report, please do come and see.
It's very important what national organisations you don't particularly like, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, just to finish then on a little bit of an example of a secure infrastructure customer, and this one's in Northern Gat, so Paul indeed, welcome. So we engaged maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I should have done research, I think about 3 years ago or something, on a tender, and this became one of our biggest secure infrastructure customers. And the requirements was around, although it's quite a complicated network, it's a utilities company, one of the, I guess, the sort of more nimble ones. But as far as the requirements were concerned, they were quite typical and this move to cloud. And what I mean by that is there was lots of branches and partner connections to like National Grid and Canadian Gas and stuff like that. Well, all the applications were in one sort of hosted provider and an MPLS network to that. But what was happening was all your applications were moving out to AWS for certain ones or software as a service for others. And that migration meant the MPLS wasn't fit for purpose anymore. It all the traffic coming in centrally and then back out. So we needed something a bit more nimble. At the same time, your LAN and Wi-Fi needed upgraded, which would upgrade right through our secure infrastructure proposition. And then you had an on-premise Mitel solution as well, which you were looking to get rid of. So what did we do? The first thing we did was we got an innovative underlayer. So that we got a software-defined network that every location had 2 circuits, but each of those circuits have both MPLS, private network, and also internet. And they had the ability to dial up and down what those bandwidths were. So as those applications were moving to public cloud, we could put more emphasis on the internet side of those circuits. So having a dynamic underlayer was a massive bonus. Then over the top, we did our SD-WAN. So again, we built Agile Cloud, we've done all the management, pre-staged everything, put those SD-WAN devices across really quick, and then we started ingesting all the information. And because we had different options for the traffic to go, the SD-WAN was making those intelligent application decisions there. We then did the LAN upgrade, and because the LAN is effectively plug and play into those firewalls, what we found was we could extend the security fabric to the ports on the switches and also the access points as well. It was very simple for us to do. So one set of controls entirely for the WAN, SD-WAN, and the local area network.
Well, I think the important bit around that, John, is about consistency. You know, we talked about misconfiguration. So driving out misconfiguration is really, really important, and that's certainly helped there, isn't it?
Absolutely. We even extended it to AWS, so we have custom-built virtual firewalls that are optimized for the hyperscalers, so we did that. And then obviously everything running from our cloud to you guys, you know, at first it was managed service, but over time as you've been trained, this particular solution is FourNet. You guys have started doing more and more of that, getting into that from managed service into co-managed service. And then with that lovely foundational network, we then looked at the Mitel side of things. So again, if you imagine it, the Agile Cloud stuff's built, it's very easy for us to plug the SIP in, connect to CX1 and Teams, and those guys have done a transformation there on that sort of secure infrastructure. So it's a nice story, and we've had challenges along the way. It's a big network, but it's been a real pleasure sort of working with this. We've sort of all the bunches and what we've got there. So yes, so thanks for coming. And if you do want to learn more about the project, volunteer, I'm happy to have a chat with you on that. But yeah, it was a pleasure to work with my perspective.
Okay, so, in summary, we've sort of maybe laboured the point, but cybercrime is sort of really important. We think it's getting worse. The network has to evolve, and the way that we inject security into the network and the way the devices are talking to the network, authenticating the network, we need to think about. And we need to think about making sure that also we don't make that access decision once. We're continually assuring that our posture is good. If the file alarm and it's starting to go completely bonsai or what they do. We're seeing more of the move to digitization continues to fuel the move from on-prem to cloud and legacy cloud solutions, from legacy cloud solutions. So we're seeing that shift, and that shift will continue. The question is, do you want to try and build that security fabric along the way, or do you want to plug into us and allow us to do it? Attack vectors are increasing. I don't sleep at night. In fact, I just don't sleep anymore. It scares the living highlights out of me, but there we are. And we do have a framework in which we can sort of stick you on that Richter scale of risk. Okay? Importantly, it's a consultative-led approach. The answer is not Cisco, the answer is not FourNet, the answer is not, right, what are the business challenges, what are the gaps, what are you trying to achieve, how much do you want to do, how much do we want to do, how do we get there together, and more importantly, how do we maintain you at that acceptable level of risk. There is no such thing as zero risk. It doesn't exist. It's an acceptable level. It's got to be proportional to the risk that you're protecting against. So you've got to put that proportional spend into it.